So maybe you're like me, and you're a Christian, and you talk to other people about your Christianity. I don't know about you, but I find that the biggest obstacle to explaining or getting people to believe is the idea that Jesus was God. People are happy to say, yeah, he was a nice guy, good dude and all that, but God, I don't see it. And in fact, I had one person who said, if you look at the parable of the unjust steward, it shows that Jesus is kind of worldly, he cares about money, and that, well, he actually promotes dishonesty. The truth is, it's a parable that has made Christians and pastors squirm for, 2,000 years now. So in this video, we're going to take a look at it and see what it is that this parable is really all about. So hi, my name's Todd. Thanks for joining me today. And yeah, this is a goofy little parable in some ways. It's like, at first pass, what do you do with it? If you're not familiar with it, it comes from Luke chapter 16. And it goes basically like this. There's a manager who's, a dishonest manager. He's an employee, right? And there's a master. The master says, this employee, this manager has been wasteful with my stuff. So he says to him, I'm going to fire you. The manager goes, what am I going to do? How do I get myself out of this mess? He says, I can't dig, I can't beg, so I know what I'm going to do. So he calls up the people who owe his master money. He says, one guy owes 100 measures of wheat, the other guy owes 100 measures of oil. And he says, I'll tell you what, make that 50 measures of wheat and 80 measures of oil, and we'll call it a day. And the idea he's trying to do here is he figures that, hey, once I get fired, guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to go to these guys, and these guys will welcome me into their homes because, I was good to them in this deal, and so they'll look after me when I get fired. The manager, the boss says, well, you know what? Well done. That was shrewd. Okay, so that's the first part of it. And we see that Jesus is telling this parable, and that Jesus is commending the guy for being shrewd. Well, not only that, but he goes another step farther and says, the children of light should be like the children of darkness, who are shrewd in the unrighteous mammon of the world. And so it's kind of strange, because if you look at that, it seems like Jesus is telling us that, go ahead and buy yourself some friends to help you out when you're going to be in a bad place. But does that really make sense? Buy yourself some friends? That's not really how the whole peace, love movement is supposed to go, right? You don't buy yourself happiness. So there have been a number of theories as to how to interpret this parable. Some people have said, you just got to have yourself a plan, right? That's what Jesus is telling us, to have a long-term plan. And sure, I believe in having a long-term plan, look after your salvation, sure. But, if some guy robs a bank and he makes a great plan to elude the authorities, is Jesus going to give him a pat on the back and attaboy and say, hey, that was really shrewd? I guess you could say, that's really shrewd, you're going to hell, but I don't think that's the message here, right? Smart, but, evil, no place in the kingdom. No, Jesus is telling us to be like this manager, so I don't think he's telling us we should plan to go to hell, right? The other theory I've encountered is one where they say, what we should do is, basically take from the rich and give to the poor. Use this master's resources and give it to somebody else and make everybody happy. Well, manager's not happy, right? And the whole defrauding your employer doesn't make sense in comparison to other teachings, because, we have the parable of, Caesar. Render unto Caesar what is Caesar's. Jesus does not tell us to defraud the government, so he's not going to tell us to defraud our employer either. He's about being honest and just and faithful in our service. So I don't think those two more common theories really hold up. It still leaves us with the question of, how do we explain this? Because this manager is stated in the parable as to being dishonest, as to being wasteful. And we see wasteful also in the story of the prodigal son. Now, the prodigal son, he's wasteful, but he eventually learns, right? He has his moment of redemption where he starts working for a living and then goes back to his father and says, hey, can you help me out? And he does, because he's changed his ways. But this guy's solution, he says, nope, I'm not going to do digging. I'm not going to be begging. So the good way out is just off the table right away. So anyway, what's going on here? How are we supposed to understand this parable in a way that actually makes sense? And as always, this idea comes to me from 18th century scientist, philosopher, and theologian Emanuel Swedenborg. Key to understanding this parable is understanding who these different players are in it. The master, well, he is God. The dishonest manager, well, that's you and me and everybody who says that they're a follower of God. And then we have the debtors. So the debtors are the resources that belong to the master, but they're put under our care. Well, we have resources that God has put into our care, and that's our talents, our abilities, all the things that we can do that we're supposed to use for the advancement of God's kingdom, not ours. And that's where the fundamental problem is, right? Sometimes we use our gifts and talents, our abilities, for the advancement of us. So like that unjust steward, we get called out for being wasteful with our master's resources. So how do we get out of this? Well, we say, well, I can't dig and I can't beg, right? Well, what's digging? Digging, well, you dig for water, right, when you're searching for it. You dig for gold when you're searching for it. So the idea is that we can't dig means that we're searching for an excuse. I can't find a way, a reason to get myself out of this. I can't say to God, oh no, I wasn't wasteful with your resources. I didn't waste your talents. I didn't do that for me. Yes, I did. Yes, you did. Okay, well, I can't beg. So I can't just throw myself at the mercy of God. I can't just say, oh, please let me off the hook, because, well, you know what? God requires us to change our ways. He requires, like the prodigal son, that we do something different. And so he says, just throwing myself, asking for mercy, isn't gonna cut it. So the only option he has left that he can think of is this idea of, well, guess what? I'm gonna call these debtors in and I'm gonna get what I can out of it. So he says, I'll cut you a deal. I'll get you, give me 50 and 80 and we'll call it a day instead of 100 and 100. Now to our time and space finite minds, this seems crazy because, hey, now the master's really been screwed. He's losing even more. You've already wasted some and now you're wasting even more. But that's not how God works. He actually wants us to use the gifts and talents that we have in His service. Because imagine it like this, right? A week ago you were supposed to help one of your friends out. Help them move or give them some computer help, whatever it was. But you didn't do it. You can't go back a week ago and deploy all of your master's resources to help that person out. But you can start now. And even though you can't help them out as fully and completely as you could have a week ago, what makes God happy is the fact that you are now deploying your gifts and talents for the use of His kingdom, not yours. We get a kind of a similar message in another story. Jesus talks about the parable of the workers of the vineyard. Some people start first thing in the morning to work, some people in the middle of the day, some at the end of the day, and everybody gets paid the same because what He cares is that you're a worker in the vineyard. And a similar lesson is here in that He cares that you're actually deploying the resources. This guy was shrewd because he finally figured out, I've got to do something with the gifts and talents that belong to my master, and I got to use them for somebody else. Now, the final part of the story is Jesus says that the children of darkness are more shrewd because they acquire unrighteous mammon for themselves, unlike the children of light. The children of light should be like this. They should acquire this unrighteous mammon. So it's like, once again, we're back to how do we understand this? What is he talking about? Why are we supposed to be dishonest? No. The idea here is that the unrighteous mammon, it's ideas of truth, ideas of goodness, like how to look and appear wise and good. That's the idea of what this unrighteous mammon is. Well, sons of darkness, they're shrewd. They do what we now call these days, we have a phrase for it. It's called virtue signaling. You go on your Facebook, Twitter, whatever your social media platform of choice is, and you tell somebody just how virtuous you are. Hey, oh, we should hate all racists because they're terrible people. Or, oh, look, we need to do this environmental cause. You put all these things up to make yourself look good. It might be true that we should do those things. You shouldn't be racist and do right for the environment. But when you're doing unrighteous mammon, it's about you're doing it to look good. And evil people do it so they make themselves friends. And what Jesus is saying is that, children of light, you should learn to do these things too. You should learn what it is to be good. You should learn what it is to look good. You should master these things, because when you fail, because when those things don't buy you the friends that you think they're going to, well then, guess what? You will have done the right things. And believe it or not, because you're working for God's kingdom, not your kingdom, you will actually be received in heaven. So it all kind of makes sense when you hold it this way, that what this is all about is learning how to use your master's resources. The gifts and the talents you have, use them. Because spiritually, quantity doesn't matter. It just doesn't. Whether you have 100 of something or 1,000 of it, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter when you start working in the vineyard. It's that you start using them. You can't go back. God does not expect us to be perfect. He knows that there are going to be times when we're going to be wasteful with them. That's okay. We need to be shrewd. We need to be shrewd. Use our gifts and talents to learn what it is to be good. Use our gifts and talents to learn what it's like to look good and to learn what it is we need to learn. And then when we have those things, deploy them as best that we can with as much as we've got. So anyway, I think I've said plenty. I hope I haven't rambled on too long here. I really do appreciate you watching and sticking in there. Appreciate comments, likes, all that kind of stuff, subscribes. If you want to see some of my other videos, I have other videos that talk about how to understand various teachings of Jesus as well. So thanks a lot. All the best to you in your journey, and God bless.